There's a hole in human history about 100,000 years wide, and the only witness is an insect. Here's the problem. Genetic evidence says humans started wearing clothes somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. But we didn't move into properly cold country in serious numbers until around 70,000 years ago. So we invented clothes tens of thousands of years before we had anywhere cold to put them, which kills the story everyone assumes is true. Humans got cold. Humans wrapped up. The end. Simple, clean, logical. A 5-year-old could figure it out. Except the timeline doesn't allow it. And once you notice that, the whole tidy narrative starts to come apart. Something else got us dressed. And for a long time, nobody could work out what. Because clothes rot. Skin, sinew, fur, plant fiber. None of it survives. You cannot dig up the first outfit. What you can dig up, it turns out, is the thing that was living in it. Billions of people, every single morning, putting on pants, or skirts, or whatever you call that thing that is technically pajamas, but you've been wearing for 3 days and you're calling it loungewear now because that sounds intentional. Clothes are so baked into human existence that we literally arrest people for not wearing them. The state will intervene if you are too naked. We built an entire legal system around the concept of, please put something on. And basically, no other animal bothers. Dogs don't. Wolves don't. The elephant has never once thought, I need a jacket for this. So why us? Start with the obvious weirdness. Humans are one of the only large mammals on Earth that's basically bald. Gorillas, covered. Chimps, covered. Bears, lions, horses, hippos, all of them, across wildly different climates, walking around in full coats. And then there's us, standing in the middle of all that biodiversity, smooth, a bit patchy, weirdly pink in places. Sporting a look that says I used to have fur, but I made some choices. The leading explanation is heat. As our ancestors moved out of the forest onto open grassland and started running prey down over long distances, a thick coat became a liability. You overheat, you slow, you collapse before you catch the thing, and then you die hungry, which from an evolutionary standpoint is the worst available outcome. So we traded the fur for something better, an absolutely insane number of sweat glands, 2 to 4 million of them. More than almost anything else alive. We are, without exaggeration, elite sweating machines. If there were Olympics for sweating, we would dominate every category. Great in summer, considerably less great at 40 below in Central Asia with nothing but your wits and a rock. But hold that thought, because cold is not where this story starts. Researchers doing what geneticists do, staring at very small things for extremely long periods of time, decided to map the family tree of human lice. Not the most glamorous corner of science, it turned out to be one of the most useful. Here's the biology that matters. Humans have 2 kinds of lice. Head lice live in your hair. Body lice live specifically in your clothes, in the seams, the folds, the fabric. They're genetically distinct populations, and body lice evolved out of head lice at one particular moment in history. And body lice cannot survive on bare human skin. They need cloth. They need the warmth and shelter a garment provides. So the moment those 2 populations split is the moment humans started wearing clothes consistently enough to open up an entirely new habitat for a parasite. Run the numbers, and that split lands somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Let that sit. A parasitic insect, the thing that shuts down primary schools and ruins camping trips, one of the most universally hated creatures in human history, accidentally preserved the timestamp on the invention of clothing. We didn't record it. They did. They were there. They adapted. They moved in. That is either beautiful or deeply, deeply horrifying. Probably both. If it wasn't warmth, the honest first answer is boring. Protection. Sun. Thorns. Insects. General abrasion. If you're spending your days walking through scrub and tall grass, a hide wrap is a barrier between your skin and everything that wants to scratch, bite, or burn it. Fewer cuts, fewer infections. Not glamorous. Sometimes the boring answer is the right one. The second answer is the one that actually explains us. Our ancestors were painting themselves with ochre as far back as 200,000 years ago. That's earlier than the lice evidence for clothing. Which means the impulse to decorate the body, to say something visual about yourself to the group, is older than the clothes. We were painting ourselves before we were dressing ourselves. And the jump from, "I've decorated my skin," to, "I am wearing this hide in this way," is not a big cognitive leap. Once the hide's on, the questions start immediately. Which hide? Was it something dangerous? Did I kill it myself? Does wearing it say something about me? Welcome to the first fashion industry. Population. One band of humans on the savannah, arguing about who gets the leopard skin. For most of this period, clothing was rough. A skin over the shoulders, held with twisted sinew, hacked crudely at the edges. The prehistoric equivalent of a bin bag. Gets the job done. Nobody's winning any awards. Then, around 50,000 years ago, the archaeological record changes. Bone needles start turning up. Not just pointed tools for punching holes, but needles with a tiny eye bored through the end, deliberately made for threading and stitching. One of the oldest came out of Denisova Cave in Siberia. Hollow bird bone, shaped and polished to a fineness that is genuinely extraordinary. Think about what that object required. Someone looked at a sliver of bone, imagined a tool that didn't yet exist, worked out how to drill a clean hole through the narrow end without splitting it, and used the result to join two materials with a controlled, repeatable stitch. That is not survival instinct. That's engineering, and it mattered more than almost anything else being made at the time. You can live without pottery. You can live without cave paintings. In a Siberian glacial winter, without fitted clothing that seals heat against the body, you absolutely cannot. Here's the bit that usually gets cut, because it messes up the flattering version. Neanderthals were making clothes too, and doing it well before they ever met us. Hides processed systematically, stone tools clearly shaped for working leather, carcasses handled in ways that suggest the skin mattered as much as the meat. Their bodies show cold adaptation, stockier, shorter-limbed. Clothing wasn't optional for them. It was infrastructure. And in those same Siberian layers, right alongside the needle, sat pierced and polished ornaments. Decoration. A human lineage we only discovered in 2010 from a single finger bone was already thinking about how it looked. Which raises a genuinely unsettling question. Is clothing a human thing, or is it a smart bipedal primate in a harsh place thing? Would any sufficiently clever, sufficiently social animal, given enough winters, eventually land on wrap yourself in something? The convergence is very hard to dismiss. Between roughly 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, the climate turned. Glacial cycles, temperatures falling off a cliff, huge stretches of Africa going hyper-arid, lakes gone, food gone. By some estimates, the entire human population dropped into the low tens of thousands. We came astonishingly close to just not existing anymore, before we'd properly got started. And here's the turn. The thing we appear to have picked up for shade, for scratches, and for showing off around a fire, that's the thing that decided who made it through. A well-made garment traps warm air against the body. It seals the wrists and the neck, where blood runs close to the surface and heat escapes fastest. It buys a human body hours in conditions that would otherwise kill in minutes. The groups with the needle, the thread, and the knowledge of how to prepare a hide survived. Their children learned it. Those skills went north into Europe and east across Asia, and they're a real part of why we ended up on every continent on Earth. We didn't evolve a body suited to the whole planet. We built a second skin and carried it everywhere we went. If clothes were purely practical, every culture would have converged on the most thermally efficient design for its climate and then stopped. Thick hides at the poles, light fiber at the equator, total standardization, done. That is categorically not what happened. Some of the oldest textile fragments ever recovered, twisted plant fibers from a cave in Georgia, the country not the state, around 30,000 years old, weren't plain. They were dyed. Multiple colors. Someone, 30,000 years ago, looked at a perfectly functional piece of material and thought, this needs to be a different color. Not warmer, different. Because it would say something. That's the real story. We invented a technology and immediately turned it into a language. I belong to this group. I hold this rank. I'm mourning. I'm celebrating. I'm dangerous. I'm available. I'm sacred. I'm ordinary. No other animal does that. Peacocks display, sure. Cuttlefish change color. Neither of them is choosing what to say based on social context, cultural history, and personal narrative. That part is entirely ours. You made choices this morning. A few conscious, most not. About what to put on your body, and what it would say, and to whom. Which is exactly what someone was doing 150,000 years ago on the African savanna, wrapped in ochre-stained hide, working out how to signal something about themselves to the people standing around the same fire. The unbroken line between you and them isn't fire, or language, or tools. It's that you got dressed. We get cold. We get creative. We get dressed. And then we spend the rest of our lives complaining we have nothing to wear. Some things never change. So, if you had to give one up, warmth or the ability to say who you are, which one goes? Let me know in the comments. See you soon.